Traditional strategies, they don't work anymore.
AI is making decisions faster than we can understand them.
Everyone's selling answers. Nobody has the truth.
Disruption isn't coming. It's already here.
Who's willing to cut through the bullshit?
Outwired.
Who's willing to cut through the bullshit? Not us, apparently, because my video keeps freezing on the intro because Restream changed their platform around who I use to stream, and every one of my intro videos stutters. Did it stutter for you?
It did.
It's the same video that's existed for like 6 months that just all of a sudden on Restream now goes bloot stutter, bloot stutter, bloot stutter ever since they changed their new thing. So I got to follow at least 6 weeks before I figure out that, because I want to. That's not really on the top of my list. But we do that, even though you didn't hear it stuttering. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Outwired. It's been a couple weeks since we have been together. I was at the Wisconsin conference last week and didn't feel like holding my phone up like this for 2 hours while I talked to Scott and you guys. And then Scott Barr has some previous commitments. He's been pretty busy in March, working on some fun things, KOA, camping reports, other things, right, for clients. So we are back. Who knows how many weeks we'll last in a row, but we'll try to get another streak going here. What's been on your desk the last 2 weeks or so, Mr. Scott Barr?
Oh man, it seems like there's a lot going on, a lot of chatter. I would say, for me, if I wanted to, think about what's going on overall for me coming across my desk is a heightened interest in the types of measurements that I've been talking about on here for the last few months, that we put some time into development of, and kind of how that's actually playing out, and it's being very well received. We're about to launch a study. I wish I could talk more about it, but once it's launched and we get the results, I'll be able to talk about it, which is
Tell me,
really going to be
the show.
What's that?
Nobody watches the show. Just tell me.
Yeah. It's going to be really a first of its kind of study, and it's based on what I've talked about before, like the brand risk measurement and emotional connections, and that is going to be something that I think is going to really be has the potential to help people out a lot. That's what it's all about. That's what I do, is I try to gather information to help people, and as well as this whole idea of again, emotional connections, stuff like that, and how that's going. But the other thing I've been working on is the life stage work, and Brian, I think some of our conversations prompted me to actually get off my ass and actually do something about this. I've been talking about it for years. I know I probably mentioned it on the last show. I'm sure people get sick of listening to me talk about it, but
no, we don't get sick and tired of it. If
I actually
tired of it, it's too bad. It's on them.
I actually have data now on it that like real good, solid data on it, and it turned out maybe better than I even anticipated.
Okay.
So because with the life stage stuff, what you see is that it's what we've always talked about, the idea that if you just talk about ages, you might lose out on some important information about the person if that's how you're completely, like, you're putting people into these real finite buckets, versus having it be, the life stage stuff. Not only does it do a better job of addressing where the person is at in their life, but it's live. It's organic. It moves as the person moves through their life. It's going to change. Their life stage will change before their age does, potentially.
Yeah, we talked about this extensively. I remember that the one exception to that rule was Zennials, who are fucking cool.
That
was my
anyway. And this the results of the research show exactly these issues where you could have two 35-year-olds. One can be independent transitional, and the other one could be actively growing their family. And it's so two very different sets of needs, yet they're at the same age, in their lives. So it's, hopefully we're going to be able to put some of that stuff out publicly soon. And I think it'll be really interesting for people to see. It gets a little dense at times, but you know what? I'm a little dense at times too. So there you go. And that's what you get. It's packed.
That's what we're here for. If you don't like dense, then you're on the wrong podcast. Right. I think that's so excited to hear that. Yeah. I mean, I think where I want to jump in, for my attention span has been over the last week, really the last 3 weeks, is the war in Iran. And I know, like, if you don't want to talk about the war in Iran, turn it off or come back in a half hour. Because we're about to do a deep dive into it, not just about the Iran war, of course, because there's plenty of commentary and news networks and things like that to talk about that on the right and left and in the center and everywhere in between, right? We want to talk about the fundamentals of it briefly, but then we want to flip it to, like, what does this potentially do to the summer camping season, if anything at all? And so I think what I'd like to do, if you're okay with it, Scott, is like briefly talk about, like, what is the issue specifically with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz? Like, very quickly, right? Just to set the stage of, like, how this is probably not going to be the quick end to the war that everybody that I talked to in Wisconsin and other places seems to think that this thing is going to end tomorrow and then everything will be rosy and wonderful. And then just discuss, like, I ran a huge deep research prompt that I haven't even read yet. I was telling you before the show through Claude on how it might impact the summer camping season, like why a campground owner who's preparing for summer 2026 should pay attention to the Iran war. No idea what it says, but I wanted to put it through AI in a way that wouldn't, like, slant my opinion depending on what I think or what I know or what I don't know, which is a lot of stuff, right? And then obviously, like, before we get to that deep dive, I want to hear your take on it too, Scott, first.
Okay.
But should we do, like, a brief, like, super quick primer on why this is important for the people who might not know?
Sure. Yeah.
Or might not have a life like me, or do have a life unlike me, whatever. Anyway, I'm criticizing myself is the point. All right. So you can share my screen over here, Jessica. I'm going to zoom out from Calgary and we're going to see if we can geographically locate Iran. It's going the wrong way, but we'll just.
If you keep going in one direction long enough, you'll find
it. Eventually, yeah. Do you think, have we determined, is there a data point out that the Earth is actually round? Do we know this for sure? Should we debate this on the show? All right. So we have Iran right here. Sorry, my little mouse doesn't work, but as well as if I had a desktop one. So we have Iran here right in the middle. To the left here is do I even have a pointer on this system?
I can see it. It's small, but I can see it.
Okay. All right. So we have Iraq over here, right? We're familiar with Iraq from our previous wars. We have Iran right here. And then we have all the other Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, everything else like that. So again, this is not going to be the most educated take on the war here. I'm not here to do that, but I just want to set the stage for what is going on and why this is going to take longer than everybody thinks it is. So these are some things that I have learned. Doesn't mean they're all correct, okay, or accurate or up to date or whatever else. So don't judge me on the breadth of knowledge of Iran. But what I have learned doing as much of a deep dive as I can into this over the last 3 weeks, as we all have been paying attention to this war, is that the going theory among many people who have been studying Iran for decades, which is not me, right? And you tell me if you know any of this. You can butt in on this, Scott, and correct me if I'm wrong or give your color or whatever else, right? But I just want to try to blaze through this. So, like, the going theory is that there's basically 3 stages to this war, right? The first stage, and again, obviously there's been conflict between Iran and Israel and the United States and lots of other, places and people and governments and politics for like decades, right? We're talking about like the near term, immediate past. 3 stages to this current conflict. The first stage, and this is not my theory, right? This is coming from Iran experts that I have read, listened to, whatever else, on both sides of the aisle and outside of the United States and in the Middle East and everything else, is that this first stage was when we dropped the 12-day war last summer, right? June, July 2025, whenever that happened. The first stage of that was let's bomb, and the United States got involved in the end of it, but let's bomb the nuclear plants because we want to make sure that they can't get nuclear weapons, and we want to see if we can contain all that stuff, right? So to the way I understand it, the way most experts believe it, Iran has 60% enriched uranium. You can build a nuclear bomb out of that. You need 90% to, I guess, build a really good nuclear bomb, I think is what it, but they're nowhere near actually building the bomb itself. They just have the uranium that can be used to enrich a bomb. And so that's been sitting there and basically, so I'm going to say some things that are controversial, Scott. So I want you to push back against me, right?
Okay.
This is based on my educated knowledge. I'm not trying to play politics or come down on one side or say anybody is a good or bad guy or any of that shit, right? I'm just trying to lay out the facts as the way I have researched them and come down. So the way I understand it is the guy that we assassinated on the first day of this current war, I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly, but Khamenei, right? The supreme leader of Iran. The way I understood it is this man has basically been functioning as, and I understand how he is perceived in the world. I'm just telling you how the Middle East experts are saying this. This man has been perceived as someone who can bridge the gap between hardliners and the more moderate Iranians. Like just like in the United States, there's a split, right? There's right, left, there's hardliners of the right, there's hardliners of the left. So this guy apparently issued like what is called a fatwa. I don't know very little about this, but it's basically a directive in the Islamic religion that says like no nuclear weapons. So this guy has basically been saying since 1979, since he came to power, that Iran should not, because of religious purposes, this fatwa, whatever else, he was the highest cleric in the country, should not develop nuclear weapons. And so we basically killed that guy, which I feel like is probably not a good idea. Not because, again, not getting into the politics of whatever else, right? Just saying not a good idea from the simple fact of this man, as reported by Middle East experts, was one of the moderate people. And again, the definition of moderate, right, is very different depending on who you are and where you come from and what you think and your perspectives and all that. Not trying to argue this man is good or bad. But he was stopping the development of nuclear weapons. His son, who has been now elected as supreme leader, as I understand it, is someone who perhaps does not have those same reservations as his father does about nuclear weapons. So going back to the plants, right, from last year. So they had made a clear line in the sand in Iran, as I understand it, that they were not going to develop nuclear weapons for that fatwa reason, but also because of Obama's agreement with them that Trump backed out of, that whatever else, right? So nobody knows if they were actually following that or whatever else, right? But that was the dictation. So the first phase of the war, according to Middle East experts, was taking out those plants and trying to see if they could stop them from having the facilities to enrich the uranium. The problem with that, as explained by Middle Eastern experts, is that the enriched uranium is so small, like it basically can fit in the size of a scuba tank. And so for those of you who are looking at Iran on a map, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, Scott, Iran is the size of 2.5 Texases. It's a big country. It's the size of Alaska, basically. So what we're doing now that we've bombed those plants and there's satellite images of all the trucks getting out of there, and maybe they're taking nuclear material, maybe they're not, whatever they're doing, we're basically looking for a scuba tank full of nuclear material in Alaska, which is not the easiest thing to find, right? So when we bombed the plants, we basically scattered this stuff. Are we with me so far? Is this valuable, Scott?
Yep.
Okay. So now the United States has bombed the nuclear facilities, thinks they've destroyed the ability for Iran to enrich more uranium, But the material that they had already enriched to 60%, they have no idea where it is now, and it's spread across the entire country. So there's logistically no way that they're going to actually find this stuff in a country the size of Iran. So the second phase of the war then is, well, we have no idea where this stuff is or what it's being used for, if it's in secret labs or if it's crossing borders or if it's being whatever. So the second step is what we can do now, which allegedly, again, nobody knows what's in the mind of actually the United States government or Israel. We're all pontificating. The second part of that was, well, let's then take out the regime and hopefully try to install a friendly regime that will then give us that stuff, because that's the only way we're going to get it, right? Is for the regime to give it to us, because we have no idea where to find it or what to do with it or anything else. Whether that has worked or not is up for debate. I feel like what I'm seeing in the news indicates that it has not worked. But as a result of that, now you've got a country the size of Alaska with 90 million people who has the same type of bodies in their armed forces, 1 million soldiers that the United States does. I was reading the other day, Scott, that they have the capability to produce 10,000 of those cheap little drones per month, or did before the war started. Obviously, we've hit some of their infrastructure and stuff like that, right? And so, should I keep going? Is this interesting? I'm almost done, I think.
No, please do, because it sets the stage for what we're up against.
That's what I'm trying to do, right? I'm not trying to bore people with politics, right? So now you've got Iran, who can produce 10,000 drones a month, who is firing these missiles and ballistic missiles and drones, but let's just take drones, for example, at right now, or what was limited until this morning, which we'll get to United States bases that are based in the United Arab Emirates, which is, again, like, I don't know where the base is, right? This is the United Arab Emirates. I think they have bases in Oman. I think they have maybe bases in, of course, Kuwait. They have maybe, I don't know if they have a base in Iraq, but like, so bases all around here, right? Where they're launching attacks from, they have carriers and all that kind of stuff, right? So Iran's been sending these drones and everything else to like hit those bases. They've tried to limit it, according to them. They have tried to limit it to those places. Again, not coming down on either side of it, right? But the math problem is this, that few people are talking about. The math problem is that $25,000 drone that they can create, $25,000 to $40,000 cheap drone that they can launch off the back of a truck, right? $10,000 a month, has to be intercepted by something. And that interceptor is, as I understand it, basically created by the United States, Patriot missiles, whatever. There's all kinds of, I don't know all the specifics, right? But those interceptors that the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia or Oman or Israel or whatever would fire to intercept those missiles cost $4 million a piece to 25,000. And the United States is currently only set up to manufacture at most 650 new ones of them every year. So they've got a little bit of a stockpile, but they've got like, I don't know, maybe 1,000 of them before the war started-ish. And those are now, and then whatever Israel had and Saudi Arabia had and the United Arab Emirates have. So my point is the math problem is quickly running out. We're firing, or not we, Iran is firing all these drones at all these countries and making them use all their interceptors. And when they run out of interceptors, they can no longer intercept drones. So we've got a huge backlog problem where the United States can't manufacture this and everything else, right? So this is not a point being said. Iran can make up to 10,000 drones. We can produce 650 interceptors in the United States, as I understand it, a year. Something is going to give, right? At some point. And you're already starting to see that. Like, they're having to be more selective. A lot of the countries aren't reporting their stock of interceptors that are left. They're running out of them. And then and whatever new ones we can make, like, who gets them? Is it Israel first? Is it Saudi Arabia? Is it the United States? Is it whatever? So that's there. And then you also have up here, before we even talk about the Strait of Hormuz, which is the big thing, this guy right here, this body of water north of Tehran is the Caspian Sea, I think. Yeah, Caspian Sea. So if you look here, here's Iran. And between this black line here and this black line down here is the border, or one of the borders, of Russia. Completely landlocked sea here. And basically, one way has been happening. Tehran has been shipping hundreds of thousands of bullets and ammunition and all that stuff to support Russia during the Ukraine war. And now, if they so choose to, there's no evidence they're doing so yet, it just has to flip, and Russia could keep resupplying Tehran almost indefinitely without any U.S. military interference whatsoever. So they're not going to run out of drones. They're not going to run out of ammunition. They're not going to run out of missiles. They're not going to run out of bullets. They're not. And again, it's a country the size of Alaska that has the capability to produce all those drones and everything else, right? Their oil is still flowing, everything else. Are we good so far? Is this interesting? Or is this
No, this is a civics class that everyone should listen to.
I'm saying you should research whatever you're hearing come out of my mouth, because I'm not doing it justice. But so then we're going to zoom into this little piece of land here that's just, I guess, south of Iran, right on the tip of the United Arab Emirates, which is, sorry, I don't have a mouse here. This little piece between, where is my little mouse? Okay, right there. So right between this little circle here and this circle here, this is the Strait of Hormuz that everybody talks about. This is where 20% of the entire world's oil passes through from countries like the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, whatever else, right? And obviously Iran, all goes through here. Maybe not all to directly supply the United States. Some of it does. And obviously we produce our own oil, but it primarily goes to the Asian countries. All of it impacts the supply, which impacts the price in the stock market, which impacts your gas prices at home. Because as we know, everything in capitalism or free markets is a supply and demand issue. It's not a question of like, well, where did it come from? Did that impact the United States? Then our gas prices get to be cheaper, right? There are some ways we can control that and some ways we can't. So this little point here is basically, I think it's 2 miles wide at its thinnest point, 4 kilometers-ish. So not very far, okay? Between this point and this point, here's the border of Iran. Like this is all Iran right around here, right? So they've got these capability to make these 10,000 drones-ish that we talked about that can be put on the bed of a pickup truck and fired from the bed of a pickup truck. And then as soon as they're fired, they can be moved down and the truck can be moved. And it can just drive away and pick up its next missile and park somewhere, or drone and park somewhere and fire another drone and pack it up and move it. The United States is not going to destroy all these things. They can't do it. They move too fast. They're too portable, and there's too many of them, right? They're going to hit some of them, but they're not going to come anywhere close to all of them. And in addition to that, anything you launch at the Strait of Hormuz can basically be launched anywhere in Iran. It doesn't have to be right on the coast right there. So the Strait of Hormuz is not closed, but basically no oil ships outside of the ones that Iran has said guaranteed are safe, which are its own, and some limited reports of things that are going to China and India. Nobody wants to go through there, not because they don't have insurance, because they don't want to die for oil. They didn't sign up to be on the oil ship and be like, yeah, I guess we'll go through there and risk a drone or a missile hitting us for whatever paycheck we're getting to operate the oil tanker. They move super, super slow. Like I think it was like 15 kilometers an hour or something like that, or maybe it's 15 miles an hour through that strait. And there's only basically 2 lanes. There's an incoming lane and an outgoing lane. And I think they're like 3 kilometers apart or something like that in here. And so like nobody wants to go through there. So it's not shut, but Iran is effectively controlling it. And there's no way, despite, to the best of my knowledge, there's no way to take out enough of these drones and trucks and ballistic missiles all over Iran to actually get it to the point where the United States can't make it safe with sheer overwhelming military power. Are we still on the same page?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the problem. But not just oil goes through this. So does a bunch of petrochemicals. So does LNG. So does like aluminum. So you've seen commodities and everything else continue to spike. Oils continue to spike, Brent crude more than anything else. And so far, like, we've seen some reports of drones hitting ships that are outside of the Strait of Hormuz, but mostly it's been contained to that. Just nope, there's 150, 200 ships sitting outside of the strait, and they're just not going through it. So there's no oil being delivered. And now you're seeing like basically countries like Saudi Arabia, who would produce X millions of barrels of oil a day, stopping their production. Like they're shutting down their oil processing because like they have no storage to store it all and it can't get out through the Strait of Hormuz, right? So then there's a whole long cascading impact of how long like that goes and what the global market can do. And you've seen them try to release the reserves of oil, which is like, I don't know, something like 12 or 13 days worth of supply for a part of the world, like 400 million. It'll take a couple weeks to release, but I think the United States consumes 20 million a day as it is, something crazy like that, right? So it's not that much of a dent in the bucket. And so Iran has basically said, like, we're going to control the Strait of Hormuz, whether you stop bombing us or not, because you've pissed us off, which, like, let's be honest, if I just put myself in Iran's shoes, I'm kind of pissed off right now, right? Not saying right or wrong, not taking politics. I'm just simply saying that, like, Iran's pissed off. Can we all agree on that without politics in the middle of it? And so the United States could stop bombing Iran tomorrow, but that doesn't mean Iran's going to stop its retaliation. Like, you need both people to stop and agree to a ceasefire. And Iran has given no indication they want to do that. So with all that being said, that's what we're looking at for like this war is not going to come to a conclusion in a week or two, maybe not even a month or two. Depends on whether Iran is actually willing to stop and negotiate, if that's what the United States and Israel decide they want to do. And then if you really want it, do we really want to get dicey on Outwired, Scott, briefly?
Oh, let's do it.
We really want to get dicey? Okay, then there's what happened yesterday with the assassination of, I can't remember his name, the intelligence chief, or maybe the intelligence chief was this morning, and whoever, the two guys that got assassinated yesterday, right? By Israel in an attack. It has been reported that I wish I knew their names. I can't remember their names. I'm not interested in talking about it in that depth. It doesn't really matter. But so the leader of the IRGC, I think, he's been in the regime, and he's been there for like 40 years. This guy, according to many Iran experts, way more than what I'm listening to. It's all over like Al Jazeera, and you can read it on CNBC and CNN, and I don't know what Fox News is reporting, but many of these analysts are claiming this guy that Israel, for lack of a better term, I mean, they literally assassinated him, right? With a bomb, and took out his son and his aide and everything else. This guy has been apparently the guy that over the last 40 years has been willing to negotiate ceasefires with the United States. This is the guy at the top of the government. So if you really want to get deep into rabbit hole conspiracy theories and all the stories we've talked about and read about how Israel does not want this war to end because they've been trying to drag the United States into a war with Iran for 25 years, and now they finally have it. Yet Netanyahu has, right? Not the country of Israel and the people necessarily. So then is Israel taking out the guy intentionally that would have negotiated to end the war early? There's a lot of evidence that says that is the case. And so now you've got a new person in charge who may not be as willing to negotiate as this guy who had been what Iran would consider a moderate, right? For 40 years, not what we would consider a moderate necessarily. So that's happening too. And then this morning, despite all the Middle East countries claiming that you are begging Israel not to do it, Israel attacked Iran's gas fields, which Iran said, as soon as you do that, we're going to start bombing other gas and oil fields in the industry because you're attacking like our livelihood and not just military targets anymore. So then Iran launched attacks, and according to, I think it was like 5 minutes before we got on the air, Iran launched attacks against Qatar's, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Qatar's or Qatar's, LNG field, which is the largest LNG field in the entire world. And they've said they've done extensive damage. Qatar said, not Iran said, Qatar said, which one is it? It's Qatar or Qatar? I think it's Qatar, isn't it?
I think it's Qatar. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Qatar too. I keep hearing Qatar on news stations. So Qatar has said that they've done extensive damage to this facility, which is the largest LNG. So again, not oil, LNG. And then Iran has also said to Saudi Arabia, like, you need to evacuate some of your, and they gave a heads up to Qatar. They were like, Israel attacked our fields. We told you days ago if that happened. Like, it was clear, not saying this is justified, not coming down. I'm just telling you, Iran said days ago, if you attack our gas fields, we're going to attack your oil fields. And Israel attacked the gas fields anyway, which they had to know would cause an escalation. again, right? And then so Iran is basically sent a notice like 4 or 5 hours ago. I want to say this morning, my time, but that's not morning in Iran, that said, evacuate this plant and this field and this whatever, and gave the notice to like 4 or 5 places in Saudi Arabia, and one of them was Qatar, this Ellen propane. So they were trying to save lives by saying, get all your people out of there. You, maybe Qatar didn't ask for this, but we told you this shit was going to happen, and whatever. And so it's really like it's fascinating to watch all this unfold and understand like the game of Iran now, as far as what most policy owners think, is to continue hitting bases and now potentially infrastructure in these Middle East countries until they convince them that it is not a good idea to allow the United States to have bases in their countries and to kick the Americans out of their countries. At which case Iran wins that stage of the war, and then who knows what happens. Whew. How long did that take me? Way longer than it should have?
About 25 minutes, probably.
Okay, I did say go away and come back in 30 minutes, so.
Yeah,
all right.
Your timing was good.
So now that we've thought about this and the implications and how it's likely to be a long, drawn-out conflict that is not going to end anytime soon, despite what Mr. Trump wants or doesn't want, what are your thoughts on this and how it affects the summer camping season, Scott?
If I'm going to take the leap here on how this impacts us in terms of our industry.
One more thing before you start. I forgot
Okay.
one thing. The other thing is the oil that is currently getting out of the Middle East is coming through here from Saudi Arabia through the Red Sea. If you come down here, and it's not as much has been going through here, they have 1 or 2 pipelines. If you come down here to this little tiny corner of Yemen down here, right here are all the Houthis, who Iran has not actually asked to attack anyone yet. But it's all the Houthis who shut down oil shipping in the Red Sea in 2022 or something like that, who have missiles and ballistic rockets and all. So if they decided to, they could just be like, yeah, go shut that down too. And then you have even less oil. So continue. Go ahead.
All right. So how does this affect us from my point of view? What in the past, we've done a decent amount of research about what the impact of major events like this have overall. There's 2 factors at play here. One is mindset. The other is financial.
Okay.
So just to start off with the mindset, when you have events like this, major turmoil, these external events that don't, people sitting at home here in Maine aren't worried about getting hit by a drone, but they also know that our country is in a little bit of distress. That overall, there's anxiety, there's a lot of feelings of uncertainty, and what should I do? Is there anything I can do? How do I proceed with my everyday life as normal? So people go through all that thought process, and what happens when they do that, typically, is they stay close to home. They don't want to go out. They want to venture out any further than they have to. International travel from the U.S. is going to decline. Within the U.S., it's going to decline in terms of long distance travel. People are going to stay regionally. They're going to, and we've been talking about this just due to economic conditions overall anyway. But when you have national stress, people look for 2 things. One, how do I decompress a little bit? But 2, in doing so, where do I go and what do I do to accomplish that? And so typically what we've seen, again, some things can always change, is that most people, again, they stay closer to home. They like the outdoors. The outdoors is relaxing. So from my point of view, and I've plotted this before. I've shown the graphics to anyone who will
Yeah,
listen about how, for example, visits to our national parks increase when there's major national events happening.
Mhm.
People feel a little bit like, I'm going to stay closer to home. They tend to get a little more patriotic. They want to keep their money here, but they also want to decompress a little bit, and they want to have a little bit of escapism. So the longer this carries on from a mindset, there's this opportunity for people to reach out and say, hey, you know what, this is the best way to unwind ever. Let's go walk in the woods, man. Let's go fishing. Let's go, let's go look at moose. And
But there's a difference between outdoor recreation and outdoor hospitality.
there is.
Are you saying there's going to be are you saying the Iran war benefits campgrounds?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Overall, from a mindset, from a mindset.
Okay.
But in this situation, the other side of what we're looking at is increased costs of everything, and increases in gas prices typically don't affect us that much. That's an unpopular opinion. I'll argue with anyone who wants to argue it. Give me a call offline. We'll go at it. I have data though. But the
is there a price where it does though? Because Robert Preston was on the podcast earlier today saying like he was on a trip to see either his vacation with his family or to see some of his properties, and he was going there and he paid $3.30 a gallon for gas, and on the way back it was $5.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a point where it does impact it?
I think there is. Yeah, there's an upward limit. We haven't hit a huge upper limit other than a few years ago we did.
Yeah, I mean, is
that's
it
everybody was staying home
$5 or is
anyway, right?
I
But
guess
at that point, we
$5.
don't really know because people are staying home regardless. So it's
I mean, my guess
hard to
is
say.
it's $5 not for diesel, but $5 for unleaded gas. It would probably be
Right.
the thing.
And there is a mental threshold, where people are like, that's just a little, that's a bridge too far. So sure, there is an upper limit that, and I would say right around that, you probably, when you get above hit that 450 range, you probably will see some pretty major changes in people's habits. But minor fluctuations, a 30-cent increase typically isn't going to change behavior a huge amount. But what happens right now, for example, is diesel is really high. It's over $5 a gallon. And diesel affects everything we buy pretty much. I don't know if anyone watches the show Landman, but there's a scene where Billy Bob talks about the price of oil per barrel and how when it hits us, like, what's the perfect price? He said, and then when it goes above that, that's when it hits home for everybody because everything you buy starts to go up. All your groceries, every product in the store.
Well, we saw that already, right? So there was a producer price inflation report that came out this morning that I'm guessing it's February, right? I assume it was February, was the PPI, which is shocking to me. But so inflation went up, but the headline, or at least I'm going to say my headline, not the headline on the news organizations, was that producers were charging grocery stores 50% more, 48% more for vegetables, fresh and dry vegetables. Which, if that is in February and the full extent of it hasn't been felt now until March, it's what, 75, 100% if it's continuing?
Yeah, it's going to go up a lot, and that's where people are really going to feel it. I think that when you consider the calculus in hospitality, again, people still want to do stuff. And they try to find ways they're going to cut back on certain things. With food prices spiking, where it's going to hit the most is in prepared foods in restaurants and so on. They're going to get hit probably harder than other parts of the industry. So what you'll end up with is people so like say they are camping or glamping or whatever, and RVing, that it's still going to be cheaper to buy your own food and prepare it yourself on your vacations than to go out. People just won't go out as much, and local economies will suffer because of that. And I hate to say it this way, but it is an opportunity for campgrounds too to get people in, based on that. Based on the idea that you can save a lot of money, you can still have a great time, you can have a great experience, but the prices aren't going to continue to go up. And based on the scenario that you put out there already, if this doesn't get resolved quickly, and it doesn't look like it will, the prices are just going to continue to go up. This was the immediate response to it, and we're just a few weeks into it. So, as Samuel L. Jackson said, "Hold on to your butts. It's going to get rough."
But so then what happens? There are only so many people who own RVs. How many people own RVs in the United States? Do we know?
It's like, to be honest with you, that's a hard figure to get at, but it is anywhere between probably between 7 and 9 million people own RVs.
Okay. So there's 7 to 9 million people. Of those, how many do you think are parked long term somewhere?
Not as many as you'd think. Probably a couple percentage points, like 3 to 5 max, probably.
Percentage points. Okay, so 10%, so 90. All right, so let's say we have somewhere between 7 and 8 million RVs that are mobile.
Yeah.
How many of those people are only staying one night a year?
That's a pretty
hard number.
Honestly, though, one night or one trip?
One trip.
One trip, probably about a quarter of them, honestly, are probably thinking about one trip.
Okay. So that takes us down to somewhere between 4 to 6 million that are taking repetitive trips or on the road constantly or whatever that middle ground is.
Yep.
And then, so if you have, let's do some quick math, right? Let's just say it's the high end is 6 million. So I'm going to do my calculator here. I don't know what this number is. I've never done it. So let's say we have 6 million mobile people on the road who are staying more than one trip, divided by an estimated 15,000 places to camp, including state parks and whatever else in the U.S. That's 400 RVers per property. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Divvied up evenly, obviously it's not going to be even, right? You're going to have more people to go to the coast. You're going to have more people go to national parks, state parks, Grand Canyon, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, right? Stuff like that. So disproportionate. So let's say that number for non-tourism destination national park areas is half that at 200. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
So we have if you're not in a destination area, we have about 200 people. And let's even take it back up to 400 if you're nearby a city, right? If you can pull people from there who are going to take short trips for the weekend in their rig, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 400 people, 400 RVs. Is this crazy? Is my math correct here? So you've got 400 people taking multiple trips in your bucket. So let's say they each take 2 trips. How do we do this math correctly, right? So we have 400 people. My point is how many people per night is what I'm trying to get down to, right? So if you have 400 people who the average stay is 2 nights at a campground?
It's almost 3. With RVers, it's a little bit higher.
Okay.
So let's say 3. So
400 times 3, you have a total of 1,200 nights. And then if they take 2 trips, average or 3?
2,400. They're a little bit closer to 3. RVers do take more trips.
Well, let's be positive then. Let's say 3,600 nights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have 3,600 nights per park. If you have a summer camping season that is, I don't know, just hit the back button. She got some kind of antivirus thing on my computer. Just hit the back button. Don't click anything, hit the back button. So if you have 3,600, and then we divide that by a summer camping season that's 6 months, right? Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Average?
Yep.
We have 3,600, so 6 months times 30, which is 180. 3,600 divided by 180. That means you have 20 camper nights per month. 20 nights per month. Is that right? 3,600 nights. 3,600 nights divided by 180. Spread out. Let's take that down to even 90, right? For the summer camping season. So 40 nights. Is that right? That seems so low. What am I missing? Is that math correct?
I don't know. I'd have to see it. I'd have to see it all.
All right, let's try to do this. All right, we'll throw this up here, throw up my screen, and we'll grab our calculator here. All right, so we're saying, I still can't see my mouse. All right, so we're saying 6 million RV. Well, we can't take out the people who are taking one trip either, right? So let's say 8 million. Is that fair?
Yeah, let's do that.
Positive. So let's say 8 million people who own an RV. This doesn't mean all 8 million people are going to take a trip, but there's 8 million people who could potentially own an RV that are not parked at a long-term camping site that could be transient people. If we take those people and divide it by the number of places they could stay in the United States, state parks, county parks, national parks, private campgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or hip camps, which is even more, but let's not even discount that. That's 15,000. That means, what did I do wrong? 8, that's wrong. 8. Or is that right? 8 million divided by 15,000. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got 533 potential RV units, 533 potential RV units per location. Per campground. Okay. If each of those, and we'll just take it to 533 cleanly, if each of those is staying 3 nights times 3 trips, that's a total of 4,797 nights to divvy up among each campground.
That's per campground.
Per campground.
That's per campground.
Yep. 4,797 nights. And then you divide that by the 3 months of the summer camping season, which is 1,599 nights per month per campground for, let's say, May, June, and July, right? Because August they go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an average campground is how many sites in the United States?
Oh, geez.
Let's just say 75?
Yeah, let's do that.
And just for the purposes of the exercise, so 75 nights means 21 nights per site for the 3-month period. So you have the potential to sell 90 nights, right? Out of 3 months. This is saying that on average, again, obviously this is way macro, right? On average, you have 21 nights that can be filled per month. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of play in there, but
for sure, yeah. But let's even say you double it. So then you take, let's say we're being generous and we double it. Then you have 42. You're still under 50% occupancy for the summer camping season during May, June, and July. On a macro level, right? Obviously, Myrtle Beach, Oceanfront is going to be fine. Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg is going to be fine. National parks are probably going to be fine. Florida is going to be better than Kansas, right? Like, I mean, it is. I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised by that number. I don't know if you are, but that feels like. I mean, heck, even if you double it, right? Is that? I don't know. A normal camping occupancy is 50 to 60% on average, isn't it?
Yeah,
spread out over the whole year.
Just RVs. That's
right, but that's spread out over the whole year. Is that average occupancy?
Right, and then so that's just RV owners too.
Yeah,
it's not all RVers.
Mm-hmm.
So
we also have rentals and everything else.
Right.
But again, this is my point. Like, I think this 42 number is probably closer to 180 for the people who are in good destinations, right?
Correct.
But then that just means the 42 for the people who aren't in good destinations is not 42. It's probably 15 to 20.
Right. It's much smaller. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the people that I keep saying that I'm worried about, is the people who you either drive to, or you stop along the way to somewhere else, or you're in a rural area without a big population center nearby, or even if you are in a big population center nearby, how many people in Atlanta that you can pull from within a 150-mile radius actually own RVs who aren't going somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be a lot of competition. Like the narrative, we talked about this in Fireside Chats. Their narrative was like, "Oh, you're in the Southeast and you target a bunch of people in the cities nearby." I'm not saying that's the wrong strategy. It obviously is for transients if that's what you want, but you're going to be among 500 to 1,000 parks who are targeting the same people in those cities. And there's only so many of them that own RVs, and they're only taking 1 to 3 trips a year with X number of nights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. You speak. Like, don't tell. I'm not I guess I am a data guy now, but I'm not anywhere close to you.
It is very, very much, associated with the area. The figures we're using here for the number of campgrounds it really should be, because some of these campgrounds are very primitive.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that this number is very low than what reality would suggest. And
Okay, I mean, we already doubled it though.
Yeah, but I think that we start off with a base of 15,000 campgrounds. That.
All right, let's redo it then. How many private campgrounds?
It's I don't know, probably closer to maybe 10,000 at the most.
All right, 10,000 equals 800. And then how did we get there? We did 800 divided by
8
what?
million.
3? Why did we do divided by 3? Oh, 3 nights. No.
3 trips.
Yeah. 3 months. And then we did 266 potential RVers per night times, so we have 266. We'll take it to 267. 267 times an average 3-night stay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Equals 801 nights times 3 trips equals 2,403 nights per property, per private campground. Divided by 90 equals still 26.7. Again, like even if you double that, it's 52 and you have 90 nights, right? And again, like this, of course, this has to be low, but we're also saying, like, I think we forgot to put a calculation in there for number of average sites or whatever, but whatever. Either way, it would be, I wish somebody had been tracking this data for years. It would be so helpful if they had. Like one of the PMS systems or something like that, or KOA, or to see how much, like, is this should we be worried or shouldn't we be worried, right? And this is because this number, like, so this, if we're at 50 to 60% occupancy, how do we get to 50 to 60% occupancy? Let's backtrace that, right? So if we have a summer camping season of 90 days, and each day has to hold 75 sites for 100% occupancy, actually, equals, and then divided by 2, because the average occupancy is 50%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we're looking at each campground needing 3,375 nights in order to completely 100% sell out. No, to have 50% occupancy.
That's 50%. That's 50%.
Across the 3 months of June. So 3,375 nights for every campground, but we just figured out we're at like a couple hundred. I mean, either we're missing something major, which we probably are, let's be honest, or
Yeah, I think we are, because it's definitely not adding up. That's because, again, it's too low. It's
Let's ask AI. You talk about this. What you think? Continue your conversation, and we'll ask AI.
But the average RVer overall spends 9 nights RVing per year. So we know that. So if you take, let's see.
We're just going to do math on this podcast, guys. That's what you tune in for, math. There are 8 million RVs who are potential transient overnight campers in the United States. And there are approximately 10,000 private campgrounds. How many, and the average RVer stays 3 nights per trip and takes 3 trips per summer. How many nights does each campground have if all is equal? And then analyze also by destination, city, rural, etc. And 3 months in summer and what they need to have 50% occupancy if the average RV park has 75 sites. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll figure it out in a second.
I came up when I just did the calculation. I took, if there's 8 million RVers, 9 nights per year, that's 72 million nights. If you divide 72 million by 10,000, that's 7,200. Per campground. If you divide that figure by 90 days, it's 80.
It's what, 58?
It's 80.
80. Okay. That's what I was missing. I was missing the 8 million RVers times the number of nights. That's what I was missing. But so still, that's 80, right?
Yeah.
And then we have 80 nights total per campground or total per month?
That's per 80 nights per campground.
For
Is that right?
3 months? That still seems right. That still seems super low, doesn't it? Claude's going to generate us a chart, by the way. Did you see Claude can do this now? All right, so here we got, this is kind of demand supply march. It should be driving every pricing and marketing decision in outdoor hospitality. Total summer demand is 8 million RVs times 3 trips times 3 nights equals 72 million, like you said. Total summer supply per park, 75 nights times 92 nights, June to August, equals 6,900 site nights. Total industry supply, 10,000 parks times 6,900 equals 69 million site nights. So if demand were spread equally, every park gets 7,200 RV nights against 6,900 available. That's 104.3% occupancy. The math says the industry is actually slightly undersupplied on a national level. Could we have been that far off?
I mean,
maybe not. Maybe not, because they've been building new parks, right? And it's micro.
Yeah, because the other part of the equation is that not all RVers stay at private parks.
Private parks, right? Yeah.
We're just looking at our parks in general. Even there's the boondockers and the hip campers and harvest hosters and so Yeah, it's
So if we take out half that, let's just take out 40% of that. How many people you think are hip campers, BLM, state park, national park? Like 50-60% of people?
I mean, they stay at those places, but not
All exclusively.
predominantly. Yeah.
Not exclusively. But so do we take 50% of this number? Or what?
Yeah, I mean, private campgrounds are still the preferred location among RVers. So
Okay,
I'd
so
say the private campgrounds still get at least 65% of the business.
let's say the number of parks is 15,000 to account for state and national.
Yep, you can do that.
To account for state and national. And 60% of RVers prefer private campgrounds. Is that fair?
Yep.
What is the math then? This is where we begin to not think for ourselves anymore, guys. You're watching it deteriorate in real time. Once upon a time, I knew a guy named Scott, and he was smart. And then AI thought for him.
It's no longer. Those are days past.
They still do a podcast, but it makes no coherent sense. It's just mumbling. 72 million RV nights, all parks. Private park share, 43 million. 10,000 private parks, 5,000 public, state, national. Average demand per private park, 4,320 RV nights. Equal share occupancy, 62.6%. And then it's going to make us a fancy chart here. This is one of the coolest new features for data in Claude, by the way. So then we have destination parks, 2,000, 45% of private demand. Public parts. The revised picture is sobering for private parks. Adding public parts in the 60-40 demand split completely reshapes the economics. Private parks went from 104% average occupancy down to 62.6. That's actually pretty close to what we know, right?
Yep.
That 40% of demand bleeding to public parks, which are often cheaper or free and sit at the best land. Destination private parks still win, but they're not printing money anymore. City suburban parks land unworkable. Rural parks are now mathematically broken. At 1,964 available RV nights per park against the 3,450 needed for 50% occupancy, a rural park would need to capture 176% of all available demand in its market just to hit half full. That's obviously impossible. The only path forward for these operators are extending the season beyond summer, which they're doing, right? To show creating destination-worthy experiences that pull demand from other categories, or consolidating, which is exactly what the industry is seeing in larger operators. Okay, so let's say summer camping season is 6 months, including shoulder season. And then factor in inflation, gas prices, Iran war, food prices increasing, whatever else might impact positively or negatively the summer 2026 camping season, and give a macro occupancy number per park versus 2025. Just to see what it pulls out of its butt. It's obviously not going to be accurate, but I'm just curious what it thinks. And then I want to dive into we have to get to data eventually at some point, but well, we are, I guess, talking about data.
We are talking about data, but just kind of basically what this whole exercise shows, though, is that you have to work for those nights. You have to work for those RVer nights. It's not a rapidly growing segment of campers.
Yeah. So what this shows is that even when all else is equal, you have a potential for about 62% occupancy.
Yeah, and that's in peak. So yeah, with RV retail sales down from last January 15%. The outlook overall this year, I think has been the mood's been dampened quite a bit. So that pool's gonna get a little bit smaller.
So it's still generating a chart for us, but it says net macro effect on camping down 4 to 8% demand versus 2025.
That's what the basically the Intopia and that hospitality group is predicting around right around 6%.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a little bit higher than that. And that was before the Iran war. On a macro level, not a micro level, right? Obviously, there's going to be plenty of people who are doing great, especially the people like the mom and pops who get taken over by investment groups and have revenue management for the first time and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rural highway parks' occupancy, 68 to 72% at destination parks, 35 to 39% at city suburban, and 12 to 16% occupancy at rural highway parks. That would be brutal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's that's pretty low. That's pretty damn low.
Iran war is the elephant in the room. Consumer sentiment. Food prices are predicted to rise 3.1%, but that was before the Iran war. Surprising tailwinds. Expensive gas historically helps camping, which we talked about. $2,000 in airfare. Early booking shows stability. Second highest total number of 2025. Yes, this is your favorite statistic, Scott. The second highest total number of campers on record with 82.4 million happened last year. The 6-month recalculation changes everything about the math, going from 92 to 180 nights, nearly double supply per park. Yeah, if we go to the whole thing, but that's not. But the supply and travel demand is not equal in all those months. It is mostly concentrated in June and July, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need music, Scott. Can you bring your do you have an iPod or something from back in the day? You just play music for us while we wait for data?
I do not have an iPod.
What about a record player? I've got a record player.
Well, those are trendy now, so yeah.
Well, I got it before I was trendy because I'm not trendy. Demand distribution across the 6-month season, 43.2 million private park RV nights, heavily concentrated in June or July. That's got to be wrong, right? That has to be wrong. That can't be occupancy. Oh, demand is what? That can't be right, can it?
No, that's not right.
What do we think is wrong with that calculation? What do we think is wrong with that calculation? That's what it's predicting with the Iran war and everything else that it found.
It's not going to be that low.
I mean, I don't think it is either. I'm asking you what we're missing so we can not mislead people potentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with this exercise, I need to start like from scratch and do the whole thing. I mean, and just figure out each of these scenarios realistically, because I could dig into some of the data I have too on where they're going and how the distribution of that. Right,
56% of all camping demand lands in just June and July. Those 2 months account for 24 million and 43 million private RV nights. The other 4 months of the season split the remaining 44%. It completes create the two different business models. Destination parks in July are running at 125%. Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Turning away nearly 600 RV nights per park in a single month. This is where dynamic pricing is an optional. It's negligent not to do it. City suburban parks hit 67% occupancy in July. So I don't know what this chart number is, but why that says that, right? but so
Yeah.
67% in July, healthy but not maxed. They have room to absorb spillover from overbooked destinations, but only if those RVers know they exist. Rural parks peak at 25% in July. That would be devastating. The month in which every RVer in America is supposedly on the road and 3 out of 4 sites are still empty. That's not a pricing or marketing. That's a structural demand problem. The shoulder season is where parks actually go broke. Even destination parks drop to 17 to 28% occupancy in the shoulder months. Is that realistic?
That seems really, really low.
I'm not saying I've done. This is the independent assessment of an artificial intelligence that may or probably is wrong. For sure is wrong, right? To the upside of the downside is wrong. I mean, let's say it's 28 to 38 for destination parks in the shoulder months. That's still brutal, right?
It is. It's pretty. I mean, it's if this thing drags on, I think the bottom line is we're going to take a hit. It's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be massive because I think people are still going to go out on vacation this summer. They're going to take fewer outings, though they may extend some of those. For example, I saw in there it said that they'll camp one last night. I don't think that's accurate. I think they'll take one last trip. In general, they'll take one last trip, and they'll downgrade the site type. They'll downgrade how much they pay for a campground. In general, but you'll still see a decent number of folks out there. I think what it tells you is that if you don't do any sort of active outreach, if you don't do any kind of promotion, you could take a hit this year. And now's the time to think about that, because this could truly be a very off year if we don't if people don't respond to it quickly.
Okay. I don't think we need to go through this. We've covered it enough, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'll go through the figures myself. I'm going to be super curious about it.
Yeah, I'm interested to what you have to. Can you report back next week and let us know?
Yep. I think that'll be a nice follow up, and I can get back some of my dignity here. So.
I'm interested to see how far AI is off, because obviously we haven't given it facts and figures and data and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, we know from what CampSpot said, transient demand is down 10%, or was at the time of Michael's LinkedIn post a couple weeks ago, right?
Yep.
So if the average occupancy is 62% minus 10%, that's 52%. We're not that far off from 38. Like, it'll be interesting. Anyway, so then let's talk about data, like generally speaking. So not just the data about Iran and all that other stuff, but like the collection of data at your property and how you use the data to make informed decisions, whether it's reacting or not reacting to certain situations like this, raising prices, putting discounts, about adjusting your rates to your competitors, making sure that you're paying attention to abandoned carts, making sure you're paying attention to where your people are coming from marketing for destinations, from what cities or states or locations, or using all that. So I want to set the stage. I want to just turn it over to you first, Scott, and say, open season, what should park owners be paying attention to, and why do you think they don't?
To answer the second part first is, I think one of the barriers is that for a lot of folks, it's like they don't know where to start. They don't know how I should even dive into this stuff. How should I look at it? What am I looking for? What's good? What's bad? In many cases, a lot of people don't know that. They don't even know, what numbers should I look at? I'll talk about in just a moment. But I mean, what's good? What's bad? And it can be overwhelming, and it can be out of their comfort zone. And I think those are some of the reasons why people don't dive into the numbers enough. Because if they did what we'll talk about now, which is what should you be looking at, and there's a bunch of different things that you could look at, but I think first and foremost is look at where are your guests coming from. What's your geographic footprint. I think that is almost like something really um, to jump into right away. Like, where are people coming from? Because once you know that, now you can start developing, strategies. You can start developing communications. You can start, doing all the follow-on. But you need to know where your people are coming from. They're, how far away are they coming from? Urban areas, suburban? Are they coming, the short distance, 50 miles, or are these long distance travelers? Are they, and then the next step after where are they coming from? It's like, how long are they staying? What type of guest are they? Start to profile your guests. That, how many nights are they staying? And you bump that up against where they're coming from. It's like, are they coming from, 300 miles away and they're only staying one night? Is that the profile of one of your guest types? That means you have a very transient park. You have a little bit more, those overnighters coming from longer distances, but are you drawing in people nearby for weekend trips? So,
Well, can we take this in piece by piece and show people how to get some of this data?
yeah,
'Cause I think that would be useful. So, Jessica, share my screen for a second. So this is just the Google Analytics account for like the British Columbia Campground Association, just because I intentionally don't want to show a campground here, right? And give away their metrics. So if you're inside of Google Analytics, if you don't know how to get to Google Analytics, you need to ask your website developer, one, if they have Google Analytics installed. You wouldn't believe the number of people who don't do this for you by default. If you have Google Analytics installed, two is, how do you access it? And they should be able to add you as a user, just like somebody would add you as a user on a Facebook page, or you would add a staff member or something to it, right? Once you're added to it, then you can go to analytics.google.com. I don't know if you can see that at the top of my screen, analytics.google.com. And you should load yourself into one of these pages like this. You may have multiple properties you can switch back and forth from, but get into the property you want. Then you're going to go over here to reports, and then you're going to come down here and go to acquisition, and you're going to go to either traffic or user, but we'll just go to traffic for our use case, right? And then actually you can go to demographic details here under user attributes. That's probably easier. So then you can see here's my country where people have been coming from, obviously BCLCA in Canada. Yours is going to be different. If you go down to region, then you can start to see, like, you're always going to have some not set, right? But British Columbia, Ontario, so this is state or province, right? Where we are. And then if you go down to city, then you can start to see the city where people come from. So Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, Columbus, Ohio, whatever else, right? And then you can go down to language if you need to. You can go to age. This isn't super accurate. This is Google account stuff, but you can get an idea of age range here, who's coming to your site. You can also get an idea of gender, male and female, or our unknown bucket. And then you can go to interest too. And this is just how Google buckets some of this stuff. Like, I'm not saying these are exactly right. But so you have a lot of demographic information in here already that you are able to track and see by default in Google Analytics. So that's the first piece of it, is understanding where your guests are coming from. This is not actually bookings. This is just visits to your website, but obviously they got to go to your website to make a booking. So you have an idea of where that's happening, and your PMS fills the secondary gap behind that, right? So then next, Scott, was how far away they're coming, right? Which you can't get necessarily from Google Analytics because it doesn't break it down by person, but you could get from your PMS, I think, at least some of them.
Sure. You should be able to. But this is a great snapshot, though, to give you that first overview, that first foray into this, to look. It's like, if this is your traffic, you can see where it's coming from, the people who are interested in your park. It's like, where are they? And it's like, oh, this tells you a lot. You could just look at this, and then those demographics, those kind of cuts. Again, you're going to begin to develop a much clearer picture of who's interested.
And remember, set your date range. This is last 28 days. Set it to like last calendar year, and then you can toggle it to compare right here too to the previous period, we'll say. And then we'll go to apply, and then you can start to see like the region versus, year over year, right? So January 1st to December 31st, 2,686 users. In 2024, it was only 1,811 from British Columbia, right? You can start to see your trends. So continue, sorry.
That's
Great.
cool. Yeah, I mean, that's great. Getting
Yeah,
that year
all of
over
this
year.
is on your site already. Like it, or it should be if you have a website designer that's designing your website.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great way to just, sit in front of your screen and just start looking at these numbers and start letting it soak in. Let it wash over you. Um, but again, though, as you see these numbers, it's giving you that snapshot of where your traffic's coming from. Um, again, that's going to tell you so much about who your guest is. Again, you can dive into demographics, but this alone, telling them what city they're coming from or what state or province tells you, a little bit more about who's coming into the area and who's interested in staying at your campground. It's a great first step. I would, if I had this, if I was a campground owner and I had this, I'd be immersed in this all the time, looking at it in different cuts in different ways.
And then just to finish up Google ads or Google campaigns real quick, the other thing you can do is go to traffic acquisition. And this is where all your traffic's coming from versus users, which is a person, right? Traffic is multiple sessions. Then you can start to see where they're coming from an organic search perspective, referral, organic social. And if you flip this little thing down here by default to session, source, and medium, then you can start to see, again, this isn't a campground, this is association, right? But then you can start to see they came from Google Organic or Bing Organic or whatever Wake Up Network is. So you can see like RV Life or Good Sam or social media or whatever else. And then over here, again, BCLCA has no online reservations for a campground, but there's a total revenue column. If you have this hooked up correctly, again, something your website designer should have done for you, then you can track the revenue from most of the reservation systems like CampSpot and NewBook and ResNexus, et cetera, right? Then you can start to see that number over here and you can see like, I spent X number of dollars on social media through paying somebody or hiring an employee or ad campaigns or whatever else, right? And this is actually how many dollars came back to me because of social media. Do I want to continue that? Increase my investment, decrease my investment, spend it somewhere else? So all that, like there's so much data available here to you, but those are the two big ones, I think, are demographics and then figuring out where your traffic is actually coming from. And if you see a lot of this direct traffic at the top, there's a lot of misinformation out there that says the direct traffic is all, that means they typed your brand name into search. That just means Google couldn't figure out where it came from, which means if they click a link on the Facebook mobile app or they click a link in the Gmail app and then go to your campground, even from your own email marketing, it could get lumped into direct traffic unless you have, and we're going to get geeky, something called UTM tags, which if you just go to Google and type in UTM Builder right here, and you click on any of these, but we'll just click on Campaign URL Builder here. It's a free thing. You just put in your link to the one page you want them to click, so wherever you would send them anyway, right? And then you make up these required ones: campaign source, medium, and name. So for example, here is like the referral. The source is a Google newsletter. The medium is a CPC banner email. And the campaign name is a spring sale. These can be anything that you want. So you saw how Google Organic was there, right? The source might be organic. The medium might be Google. The name might be maps. Like some way for you to just organize this traffic. So if you put that link in your email, then you put your website here and you put email and then you put September and then you put spring sale or something like that, right? And then that will dump into Google Analytics so you can see all the traffic that came from your spring sale email marketing campaign in September. And then you know whether it's working. It's important. Instead of just spending money into a black hole. Sorry, continue, please. I'm done now pontificating Google Analytics.
No, that was good. I think that in just a few short minutes, I mean, you provided people with some, just a great jumping off point. Again, getting comfortable with it. Again, I think it's just really important to just really start digesting the information, to look at it, digest it, and figuring out what it means to you. Because to me, one of the issues with data is, we were a few minutes ago we were talking about occupancy rates, and one of the things that you have to determine is what's good, what's bad. What's a good occupancy rate, what's a bad one. Um, it's like, of course, everyone wants to be as close to 100% as possible, but at what point is it bad? Does it become bad? And are there other factors, seasonality, all those kinds of things. So when you look at that, you have to figure out, is this good? Is it bad? And that's where I think, in looking at your information, something comparative, and again, having the year-over-year stuff in here is why that's important. It's like, what are you comparing yourself to? And that's where, if you can compare yourself to your competitors, what are they doing? What are what are their results looking like? What's their occupancy? What is it by season? What's their ADR? Again, if you're operating in a vacuum, you don't have enough information to make good decisions. So you need to be able to compare everything to something, to a standard, a benchmark. And that's where a lot of asking questions comes in. But again, it like I always tell people stories about, for example, telling someone that they're, it's good news, your retention rate is 80%, and everybody's like, yeah, that sounds great. And then you switch it and you say, so you're happy losing 20% of your customers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's where how you frame it and what you compare it to becomes important. And looking at the data, that's why in terms of all this stuff is, don't ever do it in the vacuum. Compare year over year if you can, compare the competitors if you can, and if you can't do that, compare it to the overall industry whenever possible. And there are a lot of resources out there for people to tap into for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, all right, so continue then data. What else should they be looking at? You said miles away.
What's that?
You said miles or driving distance away. I don't know that the PMSs actually calculate that. Like, I don't know. Last I heard was that KOA gave you a bucket range of like 150 to 200, right? 100 to 150, 0 to, right? I think, in eCamp. But I don't know if they actually give you an actual calculation number, some of these PMS systems.
I think a lot of them are using straight line distance and not actual mileage, because it's a lot easier to do straight line distance than it is driving miles.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
but do they even do that? Do they even give straight line distance? I'm sure that they do. I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either, whether or not that's provided. But if you can get that, excuse me, that would be. I mean, in part of it too is you can look at if you're in some in Austin, Texas, that if someone's coming from Portland, Maine, that's a couple thousand miles. Okay, so you get some long distance travelers there. But if everybody's coming from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that's a little different. So that your mileage is a little bit lower. So you can kind of estimate on your own a little bit, but if you can get actual mileage, do it. I think it'll be real helpful for you to start quantifying where people are coming from and who is coming from where.
How much do you think campground owners should pay for knowing the mileage? Not that I have a reason for asking that at all.
That's a great question. It's worth paying something.
That's not a good enough answer for me. I'm trying to do market research here.
yeah, you're trying to get the actual monetary value out of something that I have no idea how to price. So it is worth something. It is actually worth money to have that, I think, because it gives you just a much better picture of your guest.
Well, the value that data is worth, period, whatever the number is what you're going to do with the data.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's where the value comes in. It's like,
it's like abandoned cart tracking. If you're going to look at the people who abandoned your cart and do nothing, well, then whatever you're paying for that should be zero. Right? But if you're going to look at abandoned cart tracking and you're going to say, this person abandoned, I want to email them, pick up the phone, call them, do whatever I can to get them back, then it's worth a whole lot more.
Right.
So the data only is only as valuable as the action you're willing to take on it, whatever data set it is.
Right. It has to be. If it's not actionable, if there's nothing you can do about it, it's just like, meh, it's just good to know. Like maybe it's just good to know, or maybe it isn't even good to know. I mean, maybe it's just noise, and that's one of the more difficult things to do sometimes is to see through all that clutter and the noise that's out there and find out what is truly meaningful for you at a
It's
campaign.
hard. I mean, even looking at Google Analytics with all these menus and numbers and data and toggles and switches and like, how do you? I get it in some ways, right? Like I understand why they don't pay attention to some of this data. It's overwhelming.
It is. Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, anyone can look at it and instantly be overwhelmed by it because it's there's a lot to digest there, and if it's not what you're used to doing, it becomes even more daunting. So it, but it can really help you a lot in running your business by being able to look at some of this information and truly being able to apply it to what you're doing. Again, with your communications, you work with someone like Brian who's going to help you with that. It's like if you have a lot of people coming from long distances, you want to be able to make sure that whatever you're doing, taps into those markets and it grabs more of it. But if you're local, now all of a sudden your story might be a little bit different in terms of what you're saying to people about the local flavor, what are you doing locally, community support, all those things that people love doing it to places that are close by. So there's, again, it helps lead you down the path of just much more efficient communications and marketing efforts.
For sure. All right. What else besides Google Analytics, marketing data, distance data should people be paid attention to at their campground? I guess primarily from the reservation system, since that's really the only data source of truth they have outside of marketing, right?
Yeah, the one thing, there's a couple other things too. One is return guests, return stays. What's your rate of repeat guests? Are people coming back every year? I think that's really important. It's going to tell you something about your park and the type of person you attract, but it also might be telling you something about why people aren't coming back. So
and almost all property management systems have that, right? So I think so.
So repeat guest is like, what's your rate of repeat guests? I would look at revenue per guest, per stay. That I would look at it from two perspectives if you can, which is one, looking at that guest, how much is that stay worth? Again, based on who they are and so on, but also, do they stay with you multiple times a year? And if so, what's their yearly value to you? So now you're getting the value proposition of a guest and over the course of a year. And I think that's probably really important, especially if you're drawing people locally and you have people coming out a few weekends in the summer. That guest is probably going to be a little bit important to you because they're local, they're coming back repeatedly, and they're staying with you. So look at the value that person brings to the table. Again, based on the type of site that they're booking and how much they're paying. Again, the number of nights they typically stay. And are looking at your midweek versus weekend guests? Are they or holiday versus off? Those types of things are gonna again tell you something. For example, if your midweek is really lagging, maybe you want to start running a promotion about to get some more nights, get some more people in during the week, and how do you tap into that? Or maybe your midweek is doing great, and look at what you're doing there and how to build on that as well. Mm-hmm. So those types of analytics are gonna again start giving you a much clearer picture of who your guests are and their behavior. That again is I don't know if you can hear my dogs in the background, but they're
a little bit, but it's okay.
The other is the booking window. Like how is that looking for your park. We've talked a lot about booking windows and how they're changing, they're shortening up. People are shortening their booking windows. Um, and then, and how that applies to your cancellation policies, and how is that affecting your revenue? How are you dealing with that? What are your policies? How is it affecting your revenue? Look at your revenue and what kind of revenue losses or gains maybe you're getting from cancellations. Are you able to replace those guests? Excuse me. And what's the trade-off there? I think that's a really important consideration overall too. Is sometimes people, the guests themselves will stack reservations, and if you don't have a cancellation policy in place that protects you, you could be leaving a lot of revenue on the table because you're not able to replace that guest. So you need to really think that through quite a bit. In the research that I've done, guests are pretty okay with cancellation policies, even if they're fairly restrictive, as long as it's really clear and they know what the cancellation policy is. They typically have a sense of fairness. People always run into situations that are different, and you'll have to make that decision on your own. But your cancellation policy needs to make sure that you're not losing a lot of money based on that. Because again, if your cancellation policy is too friendly, people will take advantage of it. Just as an example, here in Maine, a few years ago, our state parks had just like a $5 flat fee for canceling reservations, and people would just stack up and book like every weekend for the summer because it only cost them $5 to cancel.
Yeah,
they couldn't make it, and the state parks, and someone came in and looked at the books and said, "You guys are losing way too much money here because you're not filling these sites," and it's because people are just stacking up.
I think the other thing I'm trying to think of that people should pay attention to, and there's lots, right, is probably their rates compared to their competitors and the demand in the area, which I think is probably one of the most underlooked things in the entire industry. That probably, like, if you were to just tweak your rates, you could probably make up for down 10% this year if that's what we end up being in revenue, right? You can make back your money in most cases, because even though demand might go down, like, again, it's a whole different story depending on if you have repeat guests year over year. That's a whole other different animal you got to fight with. Like, I remember it was this cheap last year and whatever else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give them a reason, explain it to them, whatever else. But if you have a low repeat rate, 20-30%, right? And it's transient people coming across or wherever else, not repeat guests for whatever reason, you're a destination or they make only one trip to a national park a summer or something like that, you have a lot more flexibility with your rates.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pay attention to what your competitors are doing and what's sold out for what weekend, and the pricing report we talked about extensively, right? Pricing pull through is higher than back ends. If you're not afraid to raise your rates, but you're not afraid to also lower them if you make a mistake too. Like, there's a lot of money sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that again, when you're looking at, and these are numbers that probably most park owners can actually really relate to, because financial stuff they understand, and it's that those types of metrics obviously are super important, because if you're not doing it right, you might not be in business for too long. You really need to make sure that you stay on top of that. Again, the whole idea of competitive comparisons, compared to your competitors. Not, this is one situation definitely where you don't compare it to any kind of national norms, because you want to know what's going on in your market.
Yeah, your exact comp set. Like we've looked at the idea of, like, it's interesting to me. Most park owners I talk to have an idea of who their competitors are, but in truth, your comp set, I think, is the people who show up next to you in Google and who show up next to you in AI. Because that's, like, other than if you're intimately familiar with the area, you've been coming there for 15, 20 years, you know all the players in the area, sure, right? That's maybe an area thing or whatever your comp set is that you think. but all that really matters is who's showing up next to you in Google, right? And then who's showing up next to you in that conversation in AI, because that's the only thing most people are considering. So I think it's, figure that out and take that with a grain of salt and use that to inform your decision of who your competitors are. Who ranks next to you in Google Maps?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, like, again, that's what people see. That's what they're seeing when they're out there doing those searches.
Yeah. All right. What else we got? I don't think we have time to go into like the 135 pages of AI news I have.
No,
Last
I
time
don't
we
think so
talked.
either. I'm starting to lose my voice too, for some reason.
All right. Well, there's one thing I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap up a couple minutes early. There's a video over there, Jessica, for one of them's on Google Maps. I think it's the first tab. Nope. It's on Google Maps. Ass Maps. All right. So we're going to watch this. This is a new feature that came out that every campground owner should probably pay attention to. It came out last week. Another new Google feature. All right, so needless to say, this is going to change the way more people discover your campgrounds.
I was thinking that big time. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked about organic search. We've talked about AI in general. We've talked about all that. But now you've got maps, which arguably is to an RV campground is more important sometimes than your own website. You get more traffic from a lot of people get more traffic from Google Maps than they do from regular 10 blue links. It's all lumped together under organic search. But this is going to cause people to do long tail queries. It's going to matter what your reviews say, what your reviews don't say. It's going to matter how you optimize your Google business profile, what your description says, what services you have listed. Do you put products and services and pricing in there? Do you list your amenities? Are you, just picking a category? Do you choose whether you're an LGBT safe place? Do you, right? Are you just toggling on and off your amenities, hiking trails, biking trails, playgrounds, all that stuff, whatever is available to you? All this stuff is important because all this stuff is going to start to be asked in 20,000 different queries. And not only that, Google's also announced they're going to, and they talked about this last year, but now they're actually starting to roll out the personalization of, I think it's Gmail and Google Photos into their AI mode now, which means that every single question someone answers is going to have a different answer than everybody else based on their history of where they took photos, eventually probably what they left reviews on, what hotel confirmations or restaurants they've been emailing about or gotten in their inbox. And so we've been telling clients this for 2 years, and almost every client just laughs at us. Rank tracking is dead. It's forget about it. You're not gonna, how do you expect to check rank or how you appear in an AI answer when everyone's AI answer is different? Now there are ways that you can get a baseline of whether you appear at all, right, and what it knows about you, of course. But the idea that you're going to be able to figure out exactly where you're going to rank in somebody's query in an AI is ludicrous. All the business owners, campground owners, investment groups, executives, everybody has got to reframe their expectation of what their KPI is from their marketing team. And it's going to be all different.
It's pretty cool though. I'm looking forward to that. new map interface. I actually like that.
It's supposed to be out now. I think it is. I
Is
think
it?
it's out.
Okay.
Maybe it's in trusted testers. I don't know. Let me see.
I'm
I
not a
guess-
trusted tester apparently. So
I guess I could see if I have it, but I'm in Canada. I get things slower than the United States unless I go on a VPN. Yeah, I have Ask Maps on mine right here. Canada. Ask Maps. Find me a campground near me that has sites that are off the highway, comma, actually make that a campground near Austin, Texas that is off the highway, and has a playground and has rates under $70 a night for July 3rd, 2026. I don't know what this thing answers. Because the rates aren't going to be there, right? For most people.
yeah, I think I actually have it on my phone, but not on my desktop.
For your July 3rd getaway near Austin, you'll find several excellent campgrounds that are tucked away from the highway, offer playgrounds, and fit well under your $70 a night budget. Arkansas Bend Park, McKinney Falls State Park, Paco Bend Park. I believe those are all state parks. Is Arkansas Bend Park is a park? Yeah. Every single one of those answers was state parks. So here's the problem, right? I wonder how they're going to classify campgrounds, but I wonder how most campgrounds don't have their rates exposed. We've talked about this on separate episodes, how your reservation system is gating it behind a date picker, which is a big problem for searches for under $70 a night. So I wonder if it's going to extrapolate the price and say under 70 is a cheaper park, and then thus just go to state parks or county parks or stuff like that instead of private campgrounds.
Interesting. Well, we're going to find out soon because people are going to start using it.
Yeah. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if that trend drives people more towards state parks or not. Because that was coming up with just that was coming up with a campground, but it was in a park category. Like it wasn't in a campground category on Google Maps, even though I implicitly asked for a campground and not an RV park or a park.
Interesting. That right. The syntax might need some tweaking.
Yeah.
Sounds like, yep.
All right. Any final thoughts?
I'm going to check my math, and next week we'll have some
Give you homework.
exciting things to go through. I think there's a lot going on. We'll try to keep on top of it. There is a lot going on right now, and there's a lot to keep track of. So lots of good measurement stuff going on in our end, but
somebody's got to work on giving the industry more data.
And that's I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
All right. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Outwired. Everybody, we appreciate your time. Hopefully you learned something new. For those of you who tuned in for the Iran dissertation that I gave, hopefully you realized that, according to Scott, the longer we're in a war, the better it is for you. So go war.
Yep. Have at it, man.
We'll see you next week in another episode of Outwired. Thanks, Scott. See you later.
Take
Bye.
care. Peace out. Bye.